welcome to the House of ZK Radio, which is a focused podcast and media channel exploring everything ZK, zero knowledge. I'm Alice, education lead at ZKM. Today I'm joined here with co-host Pavel, who's DevRel lead at ZKM, and our guest, Elias, co-founder of Kakarot. So thank you for being here today, Elias. We're very, very excited to have you.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm wondering, Elias, if you can first start off with introducing yourself. So maybe your story on how you got involved in both the Web3 spaces and then specifically focused in ZK.
Sure. I think so. After when I went to college, I studied math and political sciences. It was a double major. I think I chose it because I didn't really know what to do, so I wanted to do a bit of everything. I don't know. And in my one of my last years, I had an exchange in Singapore, and I met a friend there who was a Bitcoin maxi. And we were chatting about crypto, and I think he got me to download Coinbase at the time. And at the same time, when I went back to France, my brother, who's a lawyer, was also a lawyer for crypto companies in Paris. So he also kind of peeled me. And then when I discovered all the new field that it made me want to learn dev and get involved. So this is how I got involved in crypto around 2019, 2020. And I slowly converged towards Ethereum and roll-ups in particular, because I remember the time where my wallet, like sending transactions, was $20, and we were all joking with friends. I think it was in some DeFi somewhere, I think, but I'm not sure. So at the time when I wanted to get involved, there were only two ZK roll-ups. There was ZK Sync and Starknet, and at the time I was working at a dev shop as a full stack engineer. And I remember I asked to be sent to a Starknet event. And this is where I met the Starknet people, the Starknet devs, the Starkware team. And we got along so well. I found great colleagues, but also friends. So it made me stick. And here I am.
Nice. Really love that journey from first getting involved back when you were in school, and then finding like where you felt like you truly belonged at later on at that Starkware event. So really good to hear that. I'm also wondering if you could speak a little bit about your broad vision for the ZK space. Like, where do you see it going in the next couple of years? And maybe some thoughts on what you think the ZK endgame is for you.
I think I'll try to give brief takes because this is such a broad space, and it's also very complicated to predict the future. I think I probably can't. But I do think that we're going to see a lot of infra converge to provable VMs, also known as ZK VMs. Depending on the use cases, they might be adapted, but overall, I think we're going to see a shift from low-level circuits to ZK VMs. Mostly because there aren't that many cryptographers, and you can expect engineers to have notions and concepts about ZK, but you can't expect them to constantly write circuits. This is a bit too harsh, and it's not so maintainable and auditable. And if we want the entire world, so this is my second take, the entire Internet of Value, and even Internet itself without blockchain, to be verifiable through ZK and provable, we need way more people creating ZK infra to enhance the integrity of the web. So this is also my take. I think ZK is going to infuse internet, kind of like security certificates, and this is all to boost cooperation between actors that genuinely don't need to trust themselves behind obfuscation or closed doors or contracts. So boost transnational exchange and cooperation.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like this whole debate around which one will become more prevalent, like ZK VMs versus building through custom circuits, it's really very much of a popular discussion today. Like, one side believes that as adoption increases, we're actually going to see more people going to build using circuits versus the other half believes that ZKVMs are going to be more prevalent in the long run just because there's a lower barrier for entry. So really good to hear your perspective on that as well. I'm wondering, in terms of just the ZK space in general, what do you think are the most pressing challenges that we see right now, and what specifically are you focused on addressing there?
I think from a very pragmatic point of view, we need to drive costs down. So ZK, like proving, has to be something in the background that you don't really think about, but that gives you this kind of check, like green check or even blue check for security. So it has to be fast, it has to be invisible, it has to be cheap. Today, if you want to run a OP stack chain that's not proven versus a proven chain like Kakarot, but also Linear, Scroll, Taiko, all of these ZK rollups that rely on proving for their integrity, the cost is way higher for ZK. So now ZK is perceived as this annoying burden that you have to pay, and you might and the annoying part is your users might not even care at this point because crypto is so early, and you might not even care to have this like bulletproof system of integrity yet. But in 1 year, 2 years, the goal is to make ZK even cheaper than optimistic rollups in terms of overall cost, at which point it will be a no-brainer in terms of UX security and like future-proofness and interop.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And also wanted to shift more specifically into ZK EVMs, like what Kakarot is focused on, versus the development of ZK VMs. So I'm wondering, in your perspective, what are some trade-offs, considerations, advantages and disadvantages between these two approaches? So focusing more on ZK EVMs, like with Kakarot, versus ZK VMs in the market.
Maybe I can give like a very slight intro of context. So ZK EVM just means you have created an EVM, so an environment that's able to support like Solidity smart contracts, EVM like Ethereum like experience, but in a provable environment. So you're able to generate proofs for transactions that are EVM. So the likes of Uniswap, Aave, all of these, you can generate stacks or snarks. And so when you take Kakarot, the code base itself, you can compare it to either like Scroll, the circuits they wrote in Halo 2, to Linear, like Consensus, their own proprietary model, or say the conjunction of the Rust EVM and Succinct or RIS0. So this is what Kakarot is comparable with, the other projects that wrote a provable EVM. And Kakarot relies on the shoulder of giants, Starkware, to achieve this by using the Cairo ZK VM. So I wouldn't oppose ZK EVM versus ZK VM. Actually, the engine of our project, of our provable EVM, is a provable VM. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you have to just think about it 1 second, Optimism uses an EVM, so an instruction set of their engine is written in Golang. So I don't know if you guys know Golang, but maybe a simpler example is Reth, Paradigm Reth, is written in Rust. And these languages were not provable before. So what you would get is a non-provable chain. This is changing, but still. And Kakarot is written in Cairo. The language to write the infra is Cairo. And Cairo is provable. So that makes that Kakarot is an EVM that is provable thanks to Cairo.
Yeah. Like so the way that I understood it is that the EVM is essentially the abstraction portion that's running on top of the Cairo VM. So it's essentially the running in a secure, verifiable environment, and then essentially you can run EVM contracts on top of this. And I think a very similar, I guess, related example would be, I guess, the Near L2 Aurora, which can run EVM contracts even though Near is non-EVM. But in this case, this is more oriented in the ZK space, where you can run provable contracts essentially, fully EVM compatible contracts directly on using Cairo as the language.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly it.
All right, got it. Yeah. And Pablo, did you have any like follow-up questions afterwards, or anything else on your side?
I guess are there any performance I guess uh, when you're essentially building the EVM on top of the Cairo, um, would there be any degradations, or is it essentially very close and very similar to the performance of how you would run it essentially natively as a native EVM?
Oh no, there's so there are overheads left and right. So if you compare a zk EVM with, you said a native EVM, so I'm suspecting like the Geth, Golang EVM or Rust EVM. Was that the question?
Yes.
So if in the case of general compute in like zk environments, like provable environments, you're looking at the overhead is, I think we're in the orders of like 10,000x overhead or something. I need to check again, but the overhead is gigantic. The reason it doesn't matter so much is usually proving happens asynchronously, like in the background. So what you will usually have in the designs of zk EVMs is you run your transaction in the sequencer sometimes in machine code, like in the Golang EVM, and then your user have snappy response times and everything just goes fast. And then the blocks that you mine are shipped to a prover backend, who is in charge of proving the blocks in the background so that no one sees it, and then later on submit them on layer 1 Ethereum for verification. So you usually have this, but yeah, the overhead between zk and native code is for now extremely big. And then there's also overhead from native Cairo and Kakarot EVM. This is just because the EVM is an additional abstraction on top of Cairo, which is expected, and it's not necessarily a problem because Kakarot's goal is to prove EVM, so allow people to write Solidity code, but also just go and prove L1 blocks, for example, prove any Ethereum execution. So this is to accelerate the verifiability of Ethereum as a whole.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Elias. And I'm wondering, just on the topic of Kakarot and its value proposition, what I think is really unique is that Kakarot both utilizes the Starknet community and also EVM builders and users. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more about that kind of value proposition of being a dual VM, so having both the Starknet community and also EVM users and builders to build on Kakarot, and how that kind of affects the developer experience there.
Yeah, so I think things take time. So in the L2 space, we're first seeing a year or two ago, everyone saying, okay, you have to be EVM compatible. And then this year, I don't know if you saw, there was some kind of EVM fatigue. And everyone's like, dude, EVM sucks. We should all converge to Solana VM, Fuel VM, Move VM, Kero VM, Wasm VM. So we're seeing narrative shifts left and right. I think at the end of the day, you need to somehow maximize the possibilities that devs have on your chain so that they want to come. And then also grant them the means to, whether it be like physical means like grants and help, but also just a good network that's cheap with a high TVL, such that they have volume. So for us, it was, how can we make Starknet this multi-VM chain? Like, how can we get on top of things? You're seeing Arbitrum today shipping stylus, allowing people to write Rust smart contracts. So our approach was with the same. Can we have this like increased expressiveness on Starknet? Because Starknet has always been at the forefront of innovation, and now it's EVM compatible. So in our head, it was grow the pie and increase what people can do and see if it brings value. And it's it's good because, as you said, we're in the Starknet ecosystem. We're very close to everyone there, and we know that there are things to build that are cool. And then later on, we know that this is also a great way to test our skills and our product, such that when we we try to expand to other ecosystems, this will be a good track record to show.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And I'm wondering also, just scoping out a bit, what exactly inspired you to start Kakarot? And did your initial vision when you first started evolve into something different that you're focusing on today? Or are you sticking to a core vision? Just want to hear kind of the experience that you had that led to you starting Kakarot.
I think the story of Kakarot is really fun and cool because it was 2 years ago in July. Shahar Papini, the co-inventor of Cairo, actually had the idea for Kakarot. And back then, I wasn't even in the Starknet ecosystem. He tweeted about it. He tweeted about how it would be cool if you could write an EVM on top of the Cairo VM, like as a kind of extra abstraction. And this idea was completely novel. No one thought that you could write an EVM on top of a provable VM. Kind of weird virtualization. And I actually found out about Kakarot through Abdel, who is the lead exploration team of Starkware, because I was on like an Only Dust mission with my company back then. Only Dust is an open source contributor community, which started on Starknet but now is on many ecosystems. And so actually what happened is Shah had the idea, Abdel kind of bootstrapped the community, and the Only Dust devs who I was part of kind of joined and then made Kakarot this open source public good project on the Cairo stack. Additionally, I also met Clément, my co-founder, who was more experienced in Cairo and in general in dev. So he was able to lead the development of Kakarot. Abdel was able to bootstrap the hype about it, and I was a dev, but also a product manager or lead team. And as time went on, we solidified and united. Starkware accelerated us, but when we saw that this was a strong idea, we unified and kind of accelerated this from a project that was open source and permissionless into a proper, I would say, driven startup. So that's for the backstory. Actually, there are so many things I didn't see back then. First of all, when we started, Vitalik tweeted about us, and he said basically, it seems reasonable to write a ZK VM on top of a provable language because it is much more lightweight and auditable and maintainable rather than circuits. And back then I didn't understand the amount of work it takes to write circuits compared to ZK VMs. So now that today we're seeing RISC-0, Succinct, Jolt, everyone who is writing ZK VMs come into the ZK VM space. Like Vitalik and Shash saw it 2 years before me and 2 years before everyone. So that was very cool. The other part that I didn't see is Kakarot can be used to bring EVM compatibility to Starknet. So that's the first use case. But the same code base can actually make you able to go and see OPE optimism labs, off-chain labs from Arbitrum, and propose to them that you can prove their blocks, such that in 1, 2, 3 years, you can actually make their stack fully ZK. And this part, Charles told me about it. Clément was saying 2 years ago, guys, we have to prove blocks. And I didn't understand it until like recently. So I think my vision is evolving as we go, and we're seeing many confirmations that this is probably the right approach. So this is very interesting.
Yeah, great. And it's good to see that kind of evolution go ahead. I think a lot of projects, as they start experimenting or as they start like building their product and getting feedback from users, even expanding to other ecosystems, the vision kind of evolves along the way. But the like root mission, the main narrative, mostly stays consistent. So good to hear about your journey with that. You also mentioned very briefly that you previously founded Only Dust, which is the open.
No, I didn't found it.
Oh, you were just part of it. Got it. Mm-hmm.
I was a mere contributor. I was not even employed there.
Got it. Yeah. I thought I heard you say founder, but contributor.
Ah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Just wondering on the topic of being like on the open source kind of topic. I'm wondering in applying open source development to the ZK space, how important do you think it is? And yeah, do you think that more ZK projects should become open source?
Short answer, yes. Medium answer is yes for sure, and it doesn't make sense not to be open source. And then nuanced answer is I can understand why you want to be closed source for a very little while before going to prod, because you might not want to get, I don't know, frog leapt by someone who hasn't worked as much as you. But if I want to say it in very like succinct way, when you write a ZK system or like a proof system, it cannot be closed source, because otherwise someone who wants to convince themselves that the proofs you're verifying are actually securing an entire network of value, if they cannot read your code or like reproduce it, it's very problematic. Sure, you can have accessible code by anyone that is not allowed to be reproduced. And then I guess this goes somewhat against the ethos of crypto and also extensibility of proof systems. So I think what's really cool also about blockchain, and that's what I was using to cope when blockchain was in bear market, is blockchain allowed cryptography to advance 10 years in one because of open source and because of the funds that were injected. But zero knowledge proofs existed, I think, 20 years ago, maybe 30. And they took so much time to find PMF and like people to actually get involved. And now every year we have, every 2 or 3 years we have 100x improvement. This is crazy. So I think it's a dance to be made. But look, like Starkware had a closed source prover for a while, and then after 2 years they open sourced it. ReZero had just open sourced. I think Succinct open sourced. There is now ReZero open sourced their GPU library, and Succinct hasn't. So now ReZero is blaming Succinct for withholding their GPU acceleration library. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably social pressure. So if people just knock on Succinct's door and say, hey, open source it, maybe they will. But yeah, this is my take.
Yeah, I see. Peer pressure definitely goes a long way. But yeah, we're definitely seeing a big trend in a lot of ZK projects open sourcing their products. And yeah, I do agree that we're seeing lots of new developments happening even on a daily level. And a lot of that is also contributed to being open source. So, I mean, there's pros and cons either way, but definitely, at least on my side, a very huge advocate for open source. Also wondering, just back to to Kakarot, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the developer's journey. So more specifically, the stages that a developer has to go through in building ZK apps, and also a user's journey and interacting with them. I'm wondering if you could speak a bit about the pain points involved for both the developers and users in these stages, and how Kakarot really caters to both these groups.
Mm. So first off, ZK VMs, at least in their current form, have the ambition to behave exactly like an EVM. So actually the ZK is silent. It's a weird thing, but if you go to Arbitrum, which is an EVM, optimistic rollup, you have a certain experience that is the same as the thermal one. And then if you go to Linea, Kakarot Scroll, ZK Sync, you're kind of supposed, granted it is an EVM compatible chain, to have the same experience. So the apps and the journey should be exactly the same. You open your laptop, you write Solidity or Viper, you test it, you deploy it, and then people integrate it and then interact with it with either account abstracted wallet or MetaMask, and so on and so forth. There are pain points today because ZK needs one more year probably to reach this like escape velocity of performance. So if you are on base, you are able to send much bigger transactions in terms of compute than if you were on Scroll. But this is just because of prover performance problems that will be addressed in 6 months to 1 year. When it comes to ZK apps, actually, so zero knowledge apps, so if you're talking about privacy preserving apps, they're actually not, it's a misnomer, but they're not more possible on ZK EVMs than on normal EVMs. The reason is that in ZK EVMs and in general ZK rollups, except, so for all the ZK rollups, I can name them because there aren't many, but all of them are transparent, which means that they actually use validity proofs, which uses ZK for integrity. So for convincing users that everything has been done with integrity, but all of its state is transparent. So if you're expecting to get a credit card linked to your ZK EVM, favorite ZK EVM, like MetaMask card is being announced on Linea, all your transactions are public for everyone to see. So this is what I'll say. So the only privacy preserving rollups are not in prod, and I think they're Aztec and Aleo, and there's probably a few LF0 that I forgot. But I don't know how easy it is to deploy an app on them. I have dabbled around with Noir, it's very fun. So I'm excited for Aztec to go to prod. So at the end of the day, ZK apps are still yet to be pushed to prod, I think, except for a few.
Yep, and very excited to when they're ready. Very excited to see where they go and how they'll be developed, because I think that's going to be like very big in the next couple of months. And there's a lot of different projects out there who are specifically addressing different aspects within that whole life cycle. So some that are focused just on accelerating proving, some that are focused on the verification. So we're definitely going to see lots of progress in the next few months that I'm definitely very excited for.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
A related question. Are there any ZK apps or ZK tech that you're excited about, other than Kakarot, of course, but is there anything that you think is headed towards more of that direction?
Okay. Sorry, then maybe I misunderstood. For me, ZK apps, I thought you meant a DApp that is zero knowledge. So like a privacy preserving DApp, like Dark Forest for a game, or like a privacy preserving DEX, or a dark pool, for example, like Renegade Finance. But did you mean like Kakarot in your mind is a ZK app? Because I would call it ZK Infra or ZK Infrastructure.
No, sorry. Yeah, I guess ZK apps, ZK infrastructure, other than Kakarot. Like, are you excited about anything other, like in terms of the development space where things are going?
Yeah, I'm excited for example, the open source community in Cairo. So Garaga Labs, they developed a way to verify Noir proofs on Cairo. So some people will be able to write Noir apps, so privacy preserving apps, and verify their state on Kakarot. So that's exciting. I'm also super excited about Rust proving, like RISC-V. Like, I think what's Succinct, even though they're direct competitors to Starkware and us and Kakarot, I think what they're doing is so cool. Like RISC-0, Succinct, Jolt, Nexus, even Powder, which is a framework to invent your own ZKVM. I think this is so cool. When I got into Starknet, I was doing courses on virtual machines, and I was so excited. This was so fun, and now somehow everyone's going into VMs, and I find it so very cool because this gives us time also to kind of explore more the nerd sniping problems of ZK VMs. I think it also creates a new type of engineer. We call them ZK engineers because they are not cryptographers. So they would not be able to read through a math paper and understand the polynomials and all the math, but they are still able to write ZK VM targeted code with the challenges of crypto and ZK in mind. So I find that very cool. I'm excited. I mean, we just put our treasury on tokenized T-bills, so I'm excited about real world assets. I used to be a non-believer in crypto assets, and I was wrong. So this is cool. And then this is not really ZK though. Yeah, I'm excited about privacy. I think it's clearly lacking. So whoever wants to push privacy, I think it's fun. MPC, I need to still go into it.
Yeah, nice. And on the topic of things that you're excited about, I'm also interested to hear about any use cases, just general use cases. You mentioned a bit about privacy as well, but just general use cases in both maybe like blockchain and non-blockchain scenarios that you see a lot of potential in, or that you're personally very excited about.
I really think ZK, FHE, ZK, MPC, all of these are going to infuse into our daily lives. I hope as soon as possible, because there is kind of a point of no return from centralized actors having like permanent access to everything. Um, so concrete use cases, I think one would be cool is if all of your data was kind of like a big. Wait, do you know when Christmas is coming and you buy like a box and it has like a little things to open for chocolate? Do you know these or not? Do you have these?
Oh yeah,
Advent
Advent
something.
calendars,
Yeah, it's like an
calendars.
advent calendar. Yeah, yeah. It's like every day
Yeah,
you
yeah,
open a new one. I just eat them
Well,
all
like
at once. So.
the way I imagine it is, yeah, the way I imagine it is ZK, MPC, FHE, different combinations of those are going to enable us to treat our private lives as little windows, like this advent calendar. And then for very particular people who have credentials in very particular ways, you're going to be able to open windows and close them back. So I think this is cool for very, very granular privacy. I think we're also going to see more digital communities be able to kind of like I don't know, have means of funding and have very much lots of agency for what they're doing. So I don't know, maybe if everything can be like tokenized, you're going to be able to do sub communities way more like within towns, like kind of like network states. You're going to have able to have this a new kind of a new dimension across nationality, which is going to be your like digital self. And this is all going to be on chain somehow, or at least with proofs. And so when you meet someone, you're going to be able to prove to them that you did all those things digitally. Kind of if you're a premium member of a Reddit something something and you have lots of upvotes, people trust that you are an expert in such field. Well, I think ZK is going to make this permeate into every part of your life, and you're going to have some online certificates certified by ZK. So I think that's going to be cool as well. And then overall, we just need a new way to do cross-border transfers. I mean, for emerging markets, I think it's going to be cool. But I also think even in France, I mean, when we receive like a wire from the US, we have to pay $50. So I even myself sometimes say, oh, we don't even need crypto if we are in a first world country, because I live in Paris. But we probably do. We could also replace the entire financial system by crypto and ZK, and we would be better with it. And it would be more open, more permissionless, and more trustworthy. And ZK would enable still to have some amount of conformance. No, yeah, like laws and stuff, because you don't want to have your entire country trade on a public blockchain. It's not so good.
You know, I definitely think, I know crypto is really needed in every country. I mean, even like just the other day, I was trying to make a wire transfer to pay for rent, and the fee was like $100, which is just too much for what I was just going for. And it was the same bank too, so I'm not sure why I got charged that much, but definitely, and I think this is a very prevalent problem for a lot of people. And just what you briefly mentioned a bit about like ZK, FHE, MPC, you believe becoming more infused into our daily lives in the future. There is like some debate out there that say that like one will overpower the other, or that these are, you know, just a lot of buzzwords that a lot of people use, and eventually some will die out and others will become more prevalent. but wondering, in your opinion, if you see like a combination of all of these primitives working together, being applicable to our daily lives versus just one overpowering and dominating the other, or yeah, just wondering your thoughts about that, and also if there's any other kind of cryptographic primitives that you're looking forward to and see a lot of potential in.
Disclaimer, first of all, I don't know much about, like, I just know high level what like FHE does, how it's done, and MPC same. I also recognize the fact that they are buzzwords in the sense that sometimes the compute overhead is too high. Like ZK plus FHE right now is infeasible because ZK adds like this 10,000x overhead and then FHE as well. If you couple both, you're gonna be in a lot of like trouble to do real world use cases. But people are building for the long shot, like they're building for in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm not worried that at some point these technologies are going to be able to synergize. And there are use cases where they need to synergize, like for sure. Um, and then will one overpower the others? I don't know. For some use cases, maybe. So like one simple use case that I thought was really fun for FHE was you have a hospital in France. All the patients' data is private, but you want OpenAI to run a model on your on people's health, such that you know if someone is going to get sick, but you don't want to leak the data. You do AI on encrypted medical records, which I think is a compelling use case for FHE, for example. This is not possible today, but maybe in a few years it will be possible. Do we need to slap a ZK on top of it? On the top of my head, I don't know. But ZK is really awesome for compression. It's awesome for compression. It's awesome for committing to something, and it's awesome for privacy. So maybe you want to commit. OpenAI wants to prove that they ran a particular model using ZK for integrity, or they want to. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that ZK is also a broader thing. I think even MPC can be part of ZK, so I don't even know if it makes sense to oppose them. Yeah, I think that those three things are here to stay. They might have slight transformations, but at the end of the day, if you reason about first principle, compression of compute, privacy, and general cooperation with a minimal ability to do bad things. So MPC is this maximize cooperation, minimize risk or information that you leak. All of these first principles make sense in a world that is fully digital and has to exchange like value and currency with people across the globe that you don't know. And arguably those people will be bots. So you need systems to ensure that you can either trust someone a lot because you've seen their credentials, or not trust someone at all, but still exchange good in a very civilized and non-ruggy, scammy manner. Something like this.
Yeah, and definitely really liked how you mentioned about thinking about these on kind of their first principles. So you mentioned like privacy, and then like MPC's proposition of maximizing cooperation, minimizing risk, security, and also on the ZK side, the compression. So really liked how you brought up those points as well. I'm wondering, back onto Kakarot, I'm very interested to hear a bit about the design considerations that Kakarot implements. So I know that you guys chose to use the Peterson hash, and then all the EVM transactions are wrapped within Starknet transactions as well. I'm wondering if you could speak a bit about the design considerations behind Kakarot and maybe how this affects the developer experience.
Yeah. Maybe I can give if a primer on like equivalence and what is the goal when you write a zkVM. So you have two goals which sometimes fight against each other. One is you want users to be able to use your product, and for users to use it, they need to have decent TPS, high, so that the network is not congested. So 10, 100, 1,000, depending on the year. you need transactions to be sub-cent, and you need all the Solidity code to work out of the box. You don't want people to have to think that they're on a ZK VM as opposed to Arbitrum and Optimism. You want the best UX and DevX. So having all of this in mind, for example, you mentioned the Pedersen hash. So we're using Pedersen hash for our block hash computation. This is because it's already the Starknet way of doing it. And the TLDR is, if we weren't using it, we would have to do a bit more compute and things would cost more. So this is one of the considerations. And it's invisible to users. It's invisible to devs most of the time. And then, so that makes us, if you guys remember the blog article from Vitalik, it's not so interesting anymore because back then it was the race to be type 1 or to be called type 2 or, I mean, what was not interesting, sorry, is that people were saying, oh, I'm type 2, you're type 3, you're not good, I'm good, which was a bit childish. But today we can say, like, comfortably that people want to converge towards type 1 just because that enables you to greatly expand. So type 1 means my ZK prover, my ZK VM Kakarot, would be able to prove Linea. And if Linea was type 1, then Linea could prove Kakarot. So then this interesting thing becomes, okay, how can we compose but also choose the most performant ZK VM or the one that is more maintainable? And then you can offer kind of, you can expand the use cases of Linea making an offer to Scroll, who's making an offer to Kakarot, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be fun. And then you might also be tempted to break away from equivalence and do some funky stuff. This is also what we did on Starknet when we developed the multi-VM, because we created ways for Solidity contracts to actually call into Cairo contracts. We thought it was fun, and we thought it would also maximize DevX for someone who wants to call into Starknet protocols from an EVM standpoint. Which is why now today we're differentiating. We're saying we have one code base for use cases. This is kind of our motto, because our code base is so agile and lightweight, you can adapt it. But the TLDR is, we have had to make some design choices to cater to the Starknet environment. And this was mainly to save on costs and maximize interop with Starknet. When we converge to type 1 towards next year, our consideration will much more be how can Kakarot help prove Ethereum-L1 blocks, OP stack blocks, any ZK VM block at the lowest cost possible, such that ZK becomes fully invisible from this world, and it just helps bring this web of integrity vision from Eli, the CEO of Starkwire.
Yeah, got it. And really, for me, I really like to ask different projects about their particular design choices, because everyone's going for or optimizing for different kinds of goals. And for you specifically with Kakarot, optimizing or maximizing to be like compatible with Starknet and also driving costs down. So very interesting to see the design choices that are catered towards those goals. And just as a kind of like a last question before we close up, I'm wondering if you have any announcements to make, or for anyone who's interested in the audience, how they can further engage with Kakarot.
For devs, we're running a seed program, which we're thinking as an accelerator online hackathon that's slowly evolving in entrepreneur in residency, because we at Kakarot truly believe in how things are driven by people, and at the end of the day, you just need projects and humans that are entrepreneur mindset, but also just adventure mindset. So I would say that a chain is successful if it has a nucleus of people who want to build cool stuff and who want to ship it to prod. So we're trying to maximize for people who want to aim for prod and have products. So we're trying to help them. So for devs, it would be fun if you would want to join our seed program. The code base is also fully open source. So if you're feeling a bit adventurous, just come and drop us a pull request on Kakarot repos. We have a few of them. For users, you can join our Discord and our Twitter. It's Kakarot ZKVM altogether. And you can also DM me or ask questions. I'm always a DM away. I think it also helps because we're so early. We're in public testnet right now, and we're aiming for mainnet before the end of this year, so December. At which point, Starknet will be considered a multi-VM chain. The second one right after Arbitrum, and the first ZK rollup to be multi-VM. So I think these are the main announcements. Come jam with
Nice
us.
and very awesome, and a very exciting next couple of months. So looking forward to that. Yeah, thank you so much, Elias, for joining us and for all of the insights. I really appreciate you for being here today.
Thank you guys. I had a good time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.